just want to say how much of an honor this is to be swearing in Ben Wynn for the Lakota School Board. He is one of those people that understands everybody in this room has two superpowers. One, the first superpower is free will, and the second is the ability to read. And if you ever doubt that, if you go back about 100 or 200 years ago in this country, the world literacy rate was under 20%, and slavery was still legal in the United States of America. But something happened. And one thing we know about regimes is that if they want to control people, they try to control what they know, what they see, what they read, or control whether they read at all. And that's something that Ben's family knows something about. They came from a very controlling regime in Southeast Asia, in Vietnam, where America was fighting, and they came to this country for freedom, that freedom to be able to think for yourself, to read, and all the other freedoms that come because of that. And today, his grandparents are here, his parents who have served in the military, the United States military, are here, and Ben is now here to serve his country in a different way, being sworn in as the newest member of our Lakota School Board. So, it is an honor to be here. So, place your hand on the Bible, raise your hand, and repeat after me. I, Benjamin David Wynn,
I, Benjamin David Wynn,
do solemnly swear
that
I will support the Constitution of the United States
I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and that I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially perform and discharge the duties of the office as member of the Board of Education of the Lakota Local School District, Butler County, Ohio, to the best of my ability, and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter to be enacted, during my continuance in said office, to which I have been elected, so help me God. Congratulations.
Down in the front.
I know several of you would like a wonderful photo opportunity, so this stage gets a little tight and the lighting's a little weird, so we're gonna have everybody come right down here and we'll get a photo op if you would like to join.
This says it. Quiet as a mouse, right? It's quiet as a mouse. Adam, ready? All right, I'd like to call this meeting of the Lakota Board of Education to order today, December 15th. Adam, will you please call the roll?
Mr. D?
Here.
Ms. Casper?
Here.
Ms. French?
Here.
Mr. Horton?
Here.
Ms. Schaefer?
Here. I'd like a motion to approve the agenda, noting from the printed version to what we just modified it to. We are going to move the student spotlight to be after the Pledge of Allegiance. So if I could get a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Adam, please call the roll.
Mr. D?
Yes.
Mr. Horton?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. French?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, and join our students in leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We usually go through this. Do you want to? All right, and now we'll move to our student spotlight.
Good evening. Tonight we have a musical treat for you. Please welcome the Lakota Ridge Volunteer Vocal Ensemble as they entertain you with a couple of songs for the holiday season.
And I quote,
"Stink, stink, stunk." You nauseate me, Mr. Grinch, Mr. Grinch, with the nauseous super nos. You're a crooked turkey junkie if you try the crooked horse, Mr. Grinch.
We also have some certificates for you that I will hand off. And do we want to take a photo with all of our students? If you could please stay here for just a moment. Do we want to stand behind and we'll take a photo? Or, yeah, there we go.
We look like giants.
I swear to you, I am breaking all the knives. My computer keeps going off. I don't know what the deal is. Oh, true. I don't know what's going on with my computer. It keeps going off and making me sign in every time. Security.
All right, well, we are very thankful for our students being here and getting us all in the holiday spirit, so thank you for that. Just wanted to share, this is our last meeting with our current Board of Education. We'll talk about that a little bit, but I did specifically want to speak about the organizational meeting, which we will be having on January 12th. At that point, we will swear in our other 2 new board members prior to that meeting. We will then organize who is in what role, who is on what committee, and what our housekeeping looks like next year with meeting dates and such. So that will all be done on January 12th. The only thing I can tell you for sure is that other than starting that meeting, someone other than me will be elected as president. I have had the pleasure of serving as the board president for 2 years, and I would ask the board to kindly pick someone else to take on that role going forward. I think there's always some confusion as to how that is chosen. Some people think it's whomever got the most votes at the prior election. That's not necessarily the case. It may be the case, it may not be. It is up to the board members to express interest, and then the board does elect their officers, and then the board president places people in the different committees, also trying to recognize and balance everyone's interest of what they're interested in doing. So with that, I would ask that my fellow board members who are continuing on provide me with information on what leadership positions they would like, if they are interested in the Butler Tech role, because again, I have been serving on that role, but I'm at the end of that term, so a new person can be sent to Butler Tech, and I would be interested in that happening. I think it's good to share the wealth there as well and have somebody else learn all that there is to learn about Butler Tech. So if current board, as well as our 2 new board members, would provide me that information, I will simply collate that and provide it to everyone at the organizational meeting, so we are able to kind of save some time when we do deliberate at that meeting by having everybody's interest in hand ahead of time. So thank you. It's been a pleasure serving with this board, and you will be missed. And with that, I will pass my comments over to Dr. Whiteley.
I would like my portion to focus on master facilities. As we heard in public comment, we are reevaluating how and where we stand with master facilities, meaning reevaluating as far as getting community feedback. Community meaning students, parents, staff, community members as a whole. And we have multiple opportunities for stakeholders to be able to do that. So there are some attendance opportunities, and what I mean by that are we have very specific focus groups that we are targeting. So for example, last week we went with K through 6 staff, 7 through 12 staff. Today we had scheduled, but it is being rescheduled because of the weather. Business owners, we met with our elected leadership. So we have some focus groups that are very targeted, but then also we will have some attendance possibilities for the community at large. The community at large dates are December 18th at 8 o'clock, so that's this week, 8 a.m. At the Boys and Girls Club. Then when we return from winter break, there are several opportunities. On January 6th at the East Freshman Hub, there is one at 5 o'clock. And then there's also another opportunity on that same day, again, January 6th at East Freshman Hub at 6:30. And then last but not least, we have one on January 8th at 12:30 p.m. at the Midpoint Library. So we tried to pick very different dates and times so that people's schedules, whatever they are, would be able to hopefully accommodate one of those. Perhaps you're not able to attend, and we know schedules are very busy and life is very busy, and so if you can't attend a session, we certainly still want your input. So right now, currently on the website, there is a survey that is open to all community members and all stakeholders to take. That is a combination of qualitative and quantitative. Additionally, you don't just have to remember those community dates. We have a mailer going to every home as well that'll have those open community dates on it, and also a QR code on that will take you directly to the survey. So again, if you cannot attend, please share in whatever way possible. If you take the survey, you're still welcome to attend the in-person sessions because we would like to hear as much feedback as possible. And later on in the agenda, I will be going through at least the feedback that we've heard up to that point. And then last but not least, we will continue our master facilities discussion tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock in our master facilities subcommittee meeting. But again, I will go over the themes that we have heard thus far a little bit later when we talk about our committee reports.
Perfect. And then do we want to address our board members going off at this point in time?
I think we're going to do it at the end.
Oh, okay. I thought I misunderstood earlier. Okay. And with that, Mr. Zink?
Last week we had our first community collaboration forum where Butler Tech, Butler County, Liberty Township, Westchester, the Chamber, and Lakota all met together to kind of do an overview and talk about a kind of a working relationship or further exploration in the topic. And I was going to note that we do have a follow-up meeting to that on January 21st with a small group to kind of take away from that where we can be and what we could do, and then call the full group back together again. So very exciting possibilities for the whole community working together. And that was not a Lakota-specific meeting. We did have to fall back into that topic a couple times, that it wasn't just about us, it was about all of us working together for the community.
Thank you, Mr. Zink, for helping to organize that. I think that was a great first step in future collaboration, if nothing else, just for opening the lines of communication more thoughtfully than perhaps what we've been able to achieve recently. So look forward to continuing to expand on that. And with that, we'll go to board reports. Butler Tech, I just got back from a Butler Tech conference, their National Career Technical Conference. At that conference, Butler Tech had 6 different presentations. So they were very, very well represented. It's always so nice to see how well regarded Butler Tech is. There have been many visits from many schools and across the country that come to Butler Tech to see what we're doing here because we have been so successful in career tech and all the innovative things that are happening for students and the credentialing, and then just expanding our campuses. So the staff there is very energetic to share the wealth with others from other communities so that all students can benefit, and so that's always nice to see. And it does feel a little bit like rock star status with some of the leadership at those meetings. It's interesting. Again, our last meeting was focused on the expansion and the continuing to increase capacity. We're right now in the enrollment process. Again, that's a lottery process for anyone. There are certain programs that typically still have opportunities, but there are programs that also fill up. And part of that is just a space issue, and part of that is an investment issue. Because some of these classrooms are, to do a welding lab, is not inexpensive. We've been able to expand that, but, continue to look at ways to expand to increase capacity. The latest budget is having an impact on Butler Tech. They're expecting about a $2.7 million annual decrease based on what just happened in the change in legislation. So we're also talking about how that's going to impact what they're able to do both in-house and at all the different member schools that participate with Butler Tech. And with that, I'll move to community engagement.
We met last week or the week before, I can't remember. We've met. And mostly what we discussed was the dates for the master's facility open meetings and the focus groups that we would like to connect with. And we talked about the postcard, which I actually received in my mailbox yesterday, I believe. So most of our focus was talking about the dates and how we can get more people involved and more people to take the survey and more people to come and talk and listen to and get their feedback so we know what the community is thinking.
I know.
Anything else?
I know we also talked about over the last couple of meetings of striking the balance of our regular community conversations, right? We certainly, master facilities is certainly at the forefront, but there's also some other things as far as community conversations, strategic planning, and so we're just trying to find the nice balance of that. Certainly want to keep the community engaged, but also don't want to kind of create noise that's hard to figure out which message is being shared. So as soon as we have a little bit more solidified with master facilities, then we'll circle back to strategic planning and community engagement and talk about a timeline and path for those things.
And we used the last district parent council, which again is 2 representatives from every building, and we also invited all the presidents to come to that meeting and got feedback on the master facility plan. So that was a very helpful session of getting the insight of many of our involved parents. And then we also had a President's Council meeting, and that there were some questions and concerns about the support organization handbook that we approved in June. I think there was some misunderstanding about how complete that was and what still needed there. So the President's Council has asked that Mr. Zink come back and that we could perhaps make some modifications to that. That perhaps it's not the sense is that it might not be quite as sustainable or achievable, what is in that book, and they would like it to be a little bit easier to read and as simple as we can make it, again, while still recognizing the legalities. And so they're hoping that we'll be able to incorporate some of the comments that they had provided previously and making sure that we're all providing the support that we need for each other while staying compliant with all the rules as well. So I think Mr. Zink said he's planning on going back to the meeting in January. I think that will be helpful and we can continue that work, which I think everyone will appreciate. So
I have a question. Yeah, on the community engagement, I know we have a lot of things we deal with, but I think the recent one was focused more on facility, right? Okay, so the question I have is, how do we engage the community to make sure that the notification is getting to the right people? That way we get people right now to start being part of this meeting.
Are you talking about the board meeting, Isaac?
No, the community engagement.
The community.
the master facilities
Master
community.
facility community
So
engagement.
that mailer that goes, that mailer that is being sent that Kelly mentioned, it goes to every household.
Okay.
So not just strategic people, it goes to every household with that survey on there and the open community forum so that they can be a part, either attendance or share or both.
Okay. Can I make a suggestion? We know how effective we will be if we engage our elected officials. Besides sending a mass invitation to them, I'm suggesting that we send invitation particularly to them. Even if they cannot come, they can send their representatives to be part of this.
So we had a focus group for elected officials who were in attendance, trustees and all elected officials, township, senators, congressmen, all were invited. If they were unable to make that meeting, we're also going to have kind of a catch-all meeting so that they can come back. And I also know we have some one-on-one meetings scheduled because of schedules as well. So that was about 2 weeks ago, I think. It was on a Tuesday. That's what I remember.
Yeah,
So
and
yes.
and it was an interesting, different type of feedback that they had, and yes, I think trying to get them to come and engage, and there was follow-up on who had attended and who wasn't coming.
Perfect, thank you.
Speaking of master facilities, we're going to slide into that committee. I mentioned that we'd had the focus groups. I would say that we're still kind of early in that data, so I don't want you to take this as the be-all and end-all data. We are still well into the accumulation of that data. But thus far, particularly from the focus groups, and again, we've had the DPC and the President's Councils, we've had the elected officials that I just mentioned, we had our 7 through 12 staff, and our K through 6 staff, and again, hoping to have the business meeting one rescheduled as well, or the business leaders scheduled. We're really looking at what is this community wanting from a master facilities plan, right? What are we hoping to fix with a master facilities plan? And thus far, we've been pretty consistent in that feedback, and it has validated some of the earlier data that we received in 2018 and 2020 during that interim of time that we collected. And what I mean by that is people are really passionate and excited about continuity and fixing the grade band configuration, that we think we have too many transitions. That one is kind of leading the discussion at the moment of we just have too much transitions, we want continuity. We want more comprehensive buildings that like the high school could provide when the freshmen come in or things of that nature. And then the second, which is no surprise to me because it was the number one thing that I heard in my listening and learning sessions with the community, is class size. Meaning, and Isaac actually referenced something that you said the other day, master facilities, making sure that people are really clear about what we mean by overcrowding or overcapacity. But I do think class size, particularly in the parent group, but also in our staff group, that was very, very loud and clear. But I do think, particularly with our trustees, there was some conversations about how we're defining that and what that looks like. Our second question is, besides the money, because I think we're all very clear that that price tag, as we heard earlier in the evening, was a lot for people to absorb or perhaps understand with its complexity. So besides the price tag, what are we looking to adapt or revise going forward in a master facilities plan? And the two kind of growth areas or things that I think thus far that we've heard that folks were grappling with were really, I'm going to say trust. I think trust encompasses a lot of this, but particularly of note is trust with the OFCC, so the Facilities Construction Commission. And what I mean by that is I think that there is maybe a skepticism that perhaps the money would be there when we need it. Just looking at how legislation continues to change and all entities seem to be getting less, I think there's a worry that perhaps the money would be there and they would be good for their word. I think also particularly from the elected officials standpoint, is that perhaps the best partnership for us. So I'm going to say trust, but particularly of a nugget of the OFCC. And then last but not least, renovation versus rebuild. What is the balance of that? What is the price point for that? What is the capacity for our community to handle renovations versus rebuild? And some comments that I wrote down that people, I think that we're going to have to address continuing going forward is age of buildings, which I think we knew. And then also just to make sure that we are not that I think we were, but just to be clear that the idea that we're not being wasteful and that we're being very diligent with people's dollars. So I don't think there's any surprises there, but those are the big themes that are rising to the top. I think of note as well is that, it was mentioned earlier about options, that there were some options shared in our last planning meeting. And while that is true, I certainly want our community to know, and people in the audience, right now we are simply iterating. Right? We are taking in feedback, as much feedback as we can possibly get from those people who attend in-person sessions, for those folks who are going to fill out that survey, and we are going to come up with the best option that we possibly can for our community. So we have not picked an option or picked a path or solidified. We are simply iterating and looking at all options available to us, trying to put some at least price tags around those so that we can at least look at those. And then as we get more data and more feedback, we will take those options and whittle them down so that hopefully we can come to maybe 2 or 3, I don't know, 3 or 4, that we can bring our community to prioritize. So I don't want anyone to think that the conversation in master facilities and the planning was the be-all and end-all. We were simply we wanted to start from somewhere, and so we are continuing to iterate, simply like we will do tomorrow in master facilities subcommittee at 9 o'clock. In conference room D at central office, we will continue to look at all options because that's how you eliminate options, right? You consider all solutions and then you weigh pros and cons. So I just thought that was important for the record to say no options have been chosen. We are just continuing to brainstorm based on the data that has been given to us thus far and that we will keep accumulating.
So, can I say something? So on that, we know this night we had a public listening session, and I think what Mike was trying to communicate, I hope he leaves his document behind, because these are some of the feedback that is going to be very, very necessary. We need as we discuss facility, because he is very passionate about that, and I know that's why he came, and I hope he dropped his speech for us to look at it.
And I hope he also comes to the feedback sessions. I mean, that's why we're having so many.
He fills out the survey or both.
Yeah, and that's why we're trying to have these feedback sessions, is to make sure people do have the opportunity to share their thoughts, and that's why we are investing in sending the postcard home. It's that balance of, you don't want to be wasteful of taxpayer dollars, but in order to make sure everyone is informed, we feel like it's an investment that's worthwhile to make sure we do reach 100% of the people, and so we don't hear, you know, you never told me, you never asked, you never gave me an option. We want everyone to know that they are welcome and invited, and we would love to have them at the table. I even know we changed the way they are being mailed, because our last time we tried to inform people, some people got 3 postcards, some people got no postcards, and so we changed how we did the delivery this time to be more intentional, to make sure that no one is overlooked within our community, to be able to come and have their voice be heard.
So do we mind if I ask him to email his speech to you or to somebody?
He can
That
mail
way?
it to the board, like
Okay.
he could
Okay.
just mail that to the whole board, I think
Okay.
would be most appropriate.
Yeah.
And he did say he would provide me some feedback on some concerns he had with policy discrepancies.
Yeah.
So I did ask that that be emailed, and he said he would provide that. So we did have public comment ahead of the meeting. As we do at any opportunity, people can sign up and come to our listening session ahead of our meeting. And we had a gentleman speak about student voice and thought, and how to be more intentional in getting our student voice heard and understanding their voice, and helping them understand they have the ability to speak and the ability to be heard. So we can explore that further. And again, as we say, when we do have listening sessions with our students, typically nobody is as honest as our students with telling us what they like, as well as our opportunities that continue to be there for improvement. So we look forward to continuing to work on that.
Yeah, I think from our students' point of view, they don't even know that they have that opportunity to do that. So that was a very good point that was brought forward today. And I think we should take it seriously.
Yep. All right. Anything further there? We will move to administrative reports. Mr. Zink?
Did you do finance?
Oh, finance, sorry. I didn't think.
So exciting. What are you doing?
Moving on, finance.
I think we were focused in on a lot of the legislation that just went through. Some of it affects us, and some of it doesn't. The one that we spent the most time talking about was HB 335, which basically caps the growth on inside millage, and so that's going to have a significant effect on our finances, which is one of the reasons that the committee asked Mr. Zink to kind of update our financials, which basically I'm creating the segue for you. But basically that way we can kind of look as closely to apples as we can as the effect that such legislation is having on us going forward. So.
All right.
And we will have a presentation on that in just a few minutes.
Just of note before we go from committees, Policy Committee, I do want you to know we are still looking for a date from that. Schedules have been a little complex, but I also know there'll be a series of policies that we'll be looking at just that need to be updated or changed. But also, I know at our last meeting, it was requested that we at least look at the policies around public comment. So we will be doing that as well, in addition to the kind of normal business of policy.
All right. Does anyone have any board professional development? We have on the dates for future events, we have the facilities subcommittee meeting tomorrow, and then we also have the organizational meeting that was previously mentioned on January 12th. And with that, we will move to the financial forecast review with Mr. Zink.
So
That
basically,
I was so anxious to get to.
yeah, very big, very exciting. It always is. Basically, what we have is we put together kind of a illustrative overview of the impacts as we reviewed in the Finance Committee of some of these legislations that have just went through. So with House Bill 335, that is putting a inflationary deflator onto the inside millage, which Lakota has 6.49 inside mills. Then there's also another legislation that does have an impact. It just doesn't today, which is House Bill 186. That's the legislation that's essentially going to be doing the same thing, but it does it on the voted millage or the outside millage for districts that are at the 20 mil floor, to which Lakota is not on the 20 mil floor, so today that will not impact. So I have some handouts here, and on this handout, the first one is, it's always important to note that this is the version that we approved September 22nd, so this is as approved as you have seen it, so it's important to start there. When you go to the next page, you guys, I tried to make the fonts a little bit bigger, Ms. Casper,
Thank you, I
but it
appreciate
is
that.
still going to be a whole lot of numbers. So to keep everything apples to apples, we are keeping everything as we had in September, showing that in the reappraisal that will happen in tax year 26 or collection in 27, we had a 15% estimated reappraisal, and then again in the one in tax year 29 to collect in 30, calendar year 30, is reflective of a 6%. That's on class 1 properties. On class 2, we had a 5%, and I believe it was a 2. So that's not going to apply there. It's well above the floor. So how this deflator is working based on what we understand at this moment. There are still a lot of things that we have been told need to be worked out so that the implementation of this is still kind of a little bit unknown. But we will have that information soon because tax bills have to go out in January. So that will be coming. All right. So essentially how the deflator is working, it's taking a 3-year average of the inflationary index, which as you can see in calendar year, we had calendar year 24, 25 actuals. I kind of put that in the yellow box, 6.4, 3.1, and then estimated for calendar year 26 at 3. That gives us a 12.5%, or essentially that's going to be the cap. So when we illustrate a reappraisal of 15%, what that will mean is our 6.49 inside mills can only grow at 12.5. Interesting component to that is it's not restricting the value of property, it's restricting the way that they're going to apply, is believed at this time, the tax bill. So once this gets set, it's essentially taking us from a forecast model of one tax tab to, it'll probably be a second tax tab to keep the inside millage calculation separate. And then once we would hit the 20 mil floor and House Bill 186 would kick in, that would then create a third tax tab on what's already a complicated calculation. So what that's coming down to is if you drop down to the second box that's kind of grayed out, that shows that our actual value is estimated to be in class 1 around 4.9 million, and they're going to have the calculation come off of 4.8 or a reduction of 99.4 million in value. That would result in a $645,000 reduction that then will be every year. Now, the reason it's not going to kick in the estimated update in calendar year 29, the payment in calendar year 30, is because forecasting right now, we have that at 6%. If this was 3s all the way through, then our cap would be 9%. So it wouldn't hit the cap then. But that 645 is going to continue carrying out essentially forever, as long as this legislation's in place. So you can see the accumulation of that based on the tax year, and then you can see below the accumulation on that based on fiscal years. Fiscal years are split because tax years pay first, second half. That splits our fiscal years. So that's another thing that makes this a little bit fun to track also. Something to keep in mind, something that we like to talk a lot about in the negotiation world. What's a 1% cost? It's going to be important to know that when we got this estimated to be a 15%, or the deflator, is going to hit us by about 2.5. For every 1% above the 15% is essentially going to be a reduction of about $275,000 every year moving forward. So if that did hit as a 25%, then that would be a reduction in our estimated revenue of about $2.75 million. It's going to always be important to keep that in mind because it's hard. We all live here. All of us live here. That is going to impact our tax bills, which is a wonderful thing. However, me as the treasurer, we have to watch this for timing, for cash flows, and for operations of the district. That's going to be very important to keep our eyes on because the higher a reappraisal, in theory, the higher a reappraisal would be, the more inflation we're going to have, the more that could result in more expensive operations, more expensive health cares, more expensive salaries, the whole 9 yards. As we have growth, that's going to put caps around that, student growth as well. Mm-hmm. So that's why that's important to keep an eye on, although it doesn't appear to be a great impact based on how we forecasted in September. There is the potential for that to have a bigger implication. And if you would go to the last page, that's showing how that drops in within the model. Another thing that I'm going to bring you to your attention, you would say, well, based on the prior page, it looks like the overall change, very bottom side, isn't quite as much. And that's because our state money did come in about $750,000 better than what we had forecasted in September. We've already built that one in, and that was due to transportation as well as special education. And that's another thing that we've got to keep in mind. When we do a forecast in November, we typically have this data. So when we're now going, we had this one in September, it was supposed to be October, but we didn't have a board meeting scheduled. Starting in fiscal 27, we're going to have this approved by the end of August. Typically, the Ohio Department of Education doesn't get us that first blush, especially in biennium years, until December #1 payment. So because of that, it's going to create a little bit of a different lag that we've already kind of been used to. The cadence is going to change a little bit as we're getting used to these new forecasted timelines. A lot of numbers, a lot to talk about. Anybody have any questions?
Questions? Comments for Mr. Zink?
I have a comment. I think this is another example. So we talk a lot about how, in Ohio, school districts basically have to keep coming back for operational levies over time due to the restrictions on fighting inflation, right? So in addition to the rollback of the millage that we have on the bulk of our revenue, this adds another inflationary cap on the revenues that we get. And so as we talk to we just had an issue on the ballot. As we talk to the communities, there's always the thing of, why do you have to keep coming back for money? Well, it's because inflation goes up and our revenues stay flat. And this is another a measure by the legislature to cap that and add that pressure to us. And so, yes, it's a financial impact, but it also means that we will necessarily, just to keep and maintain what we have today, come back to the community sooner for operational levies, just to maintain, to keep the revenues, to keep our revenues growing consistently with inflation. So, and I think what's a little interesting about this is it separates it away from the appraised value. And so that's a concept that I know as we talked with the community about in the past couple months, there's a lot of confusion around, you know, oh, all these housing prices are going up, so you guys are getting more value, and it's not with these type of caps. And so that's a concept that we've just got to make sure the community's aware with as we continue to talk with them about our finances.
Kind of a desperate situation that we're going to find ourselves in is, as this biennial budget didn't increase the funding of the formula, because of that, we had dropped from 19% state share down to 11% state share. This is going to come up a little bit later in some TIF agreements. But when they didn't fund that and it took us down to 11%, now keep in mind that the state minimum is going to be 10%. So we're becoming even more close to that floor, essentially, at the state share. Something that is worth noting on that is, if you were a district, which we aren't today, but one of the things that makes it tricky when they separate values from payments is now for a district that was on the 20 mil floor, not us, we're not one of the windfall districts, but if you were a district that was on the 20 mil floor and you also are on that formula, now essentially the revenue that the state says that you would be getting, which is part of your wealth index, isn't going to be coming to you. So that's going to add another layer of risk as we would move forward. If we find ourselves to be on the floor, funding formulas change, wealth indexes are still there. Now they're going to go with that true value, not the value that was impacted by House Bill 335 or 186 for a district that's a floor district, or 8 of the 10 districts in Butler County.
Yeah, I'll comment what we saw this summer with the attempted additions to the budget bill that legislators were trying to insert in. As you kind of started pulling one thread, right, there was there was districts that had huge wins and districts that had huge losses. And so, you know, as we look at going forward, that choice for the legislature not to fully fund the formula and instead try to address it with individual measures is causing a lot of massive changes because Ohio's districts are so varied. And so I think that's something that I know we are watching very closely to see how all of these individual tweaks, I'll call them, are affecting our finances. But it is something that's very concerning as we see these kind of rolling out one by one, is that each individual measure could have drastic effects for us, which wouldn't be true for other districts just down the road from us. So. Yeah,
the good news for me personally is I just have to forecast this and model this based on Lakota, one district overall. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do feel bad for Auditor Nix because this is going to be a distribution that's going to happen for all tax bills that get sent out. And as we all know, the more variables that come into these things, the more risk there is for things to not go well. And so that's where I think, sympathy to the county auditor's office for them getting ready to release tax bills come January, because there's a lot of moving parts and unknowns that it's just new legislations. Another good is that this wasn't forecasted in because this is a snapshot overall. But when we see the change that's going to impact all taxpayers that own property, they're shifting the non-business credit down till it gets to 0, shifting up the owner-occupied credit till it would hit 15%. So that's going to have kind of came up from our community partnership forum that we had, that's going to shift a little bit of the capacity within the community on what they may be supportive of, because that will have the state picking up some of our local tax bills for everybody that owns their own residential home. That'll shift some of that from their bill over to the state. And so that's kind of going to be a little bit of a recalibration as well, where while people kind of settle into that new bill by tax year 29, it's going to be a several-year phase in there.
Does it not mean that there's going to be a relief to the taxpayers?
That is correct. That is correct. This will be a relief, and then as they shift, what they're doing is the non-business credit, be like multifamily properties, they're going to shift that down, and that'll come down to a 0 eventually, which then could shift a little bit of a burden on renters. But as that shifts down to 0, they're going to shift up that owner-occupied credit up to 15. Currently, that's at 2.5%. So that'll be a 12.5% increase to people that own their own properties.
Christina, anything? Nope. I think another important piece of all of this, when I look at the big jumps that we have in some of the reappraisals, you've done some research into looking at some of the underlying causation of that. And we're seeing many times where a home is not originally valued at the sale price. So can you speak to what you've seen in your research as to how homes are being put in originally versus what they're selling for?
Yeah, Auditor Nix and I had many conversations about this, and in Butler County, they use the appraisal methodology. These appraisal tables are built in every year of a reappraisal. So the last reappraisal that we experienced was in 2020. So then as these properties come in, it goes through an appraisal table, and that's how the value gets assessed. Where the hyper growth that we've all seen locally and statewide on what homes are selling for, where that's kind of became a little bit of a contradict, I don't know if I'm finding the right word, but kind of a sticky point as the Department of Tax looks at sales. So when those tables don't produce a similar value to what the sale comes in, that's where we can see these large shifts in whether it be a neighborhood or a tax base in general. Neighborhood, subdivisions, they go through all of these different levels, but that's where when they look at the State Department of Tax and they tell them what they have to set the rate at, that's where some of those can come back large. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Value being the distribution of a tax bill. That's kind of what that's doing. So it's good. We all want to see our properties go up in value. That's, for most people, that's a big asset and a wealth point that most families would have. So it's nice to see the values come up, and it's nice to see that we all have potentially purchased homes in an area that we do see growth on that investment that we've made personally. However, one of the other byproducts of that is it can result in increased and changing tax bills and distribution of the tax bases overall.
But specifically, if I buy my house for $100,000 and it gets put in these tax tables that we've seen, not necessarily at $100,000, and there seems to be some discrepancies even amongst homes at the same time being put in at different values, has there not?
Yeah, no, that based on the research that I had done back heavy in 2023, that's where we weren't able to see what the components of the tax tables that they, or not tax tables, I'm sorry, but the appraisal tables that they're using, because every home has different factors that play into that, but that's where you can see some discrepancies within that. And then when it comes to the Department of Tax looking at that overall, then that can result in larger shifts to what the expected increase would be at a reappraisal or update cycle.
So weren't you seeing some homes that were like 30% of their sale price when they were put into the tables for their values?
We had seen some that hadn't changed at all.
And so, I struggle because when we're passing levies, it's for a fixed dollar amount. So if I'm willing to buy my house, again, to keep the math simple, for $100,000 and it gets put in the appraisal tables and put in the value for the county or the township as $70,000, then somebody else is picking up part of my expense, and it's costing me more. Because, we've all talked about how we've had people, depending upon where you are relative to the average with your increase, your tax bill may have gone down last year. I know multiple people whose schools' taxes have actually gone down because their value went up less than average. And then when we have homes that are being put in at significantly less than the sale price, again, those people, if our levy is collecting $1 million, those people are paying less than their what would seem appropriate share, given that they were willing to pay the $100,000 for their home.
It will and can skew that distribution of that amount. We actually had somebody at the Liberty Township Festival that Dr. Whiteley, Ms. Fuller, and I attended that had said that their tax bill had went up 38%. Well, 38% was what the Lakota value overall had went up. And I got the person's email address and really researched in and sent them a message back. Now, one tax year to the next, their bill had increased by 17%. It wasn't 38%, but it was 17%. However, their overall value, and they were an annexed, Lakota annexed property to Monroe, their overall value had actually increased by 52%. So that was part of the reason why they did see a larger increase. Now, it wasn't the 38%, but they did see a 52% where overall the average for the district was 38. Now, let's go the vice versa of that. If somebody saw a increase of 20% when the average was 38, they may have seen a 3 or 4% increase. They may have seen the opposite end of that. So it's hard to imagine values being not exactly, because they're not really hooked to what you might sell your home for, but it's really just the distribution of all of the local taxes. It's just how that bill overall gets split up. We calculate it as one, and then they break it apart to everybody that gets one.
Yeah, I mean, if the average was 38, they went up 20, they probably had a decrease in their tax
They
bill.
would, yeah, that's what I meant. Where the one
Yeah.
that seemed 52%, they had a 17% increase.
Yeah.
Where somebody, if they would have, on the other side, had about a 20% increase, then they would have seen a much slight, or a
Probably
decrease.
a decrease, yeah. Yeah, I just think it's important that if we're going to cap how much values grow once they're on the books, that it seems that it would be nice if we could do some work about making sure when they go on, they are put on for the value that they were purchased for, less the sales commission.
Correct.
And I don't understand why that can't happen to help avoid these big increases. I think people have that expectation when they first purchase it, that that is a fair value, that's what they paid. They wouldn't have paid that if they didn't think it was a fair value. So I'm not, I think it would behoove us to try to encourage our legislators to avoid these big increases in value that upset people by putting homes in at the appropriate value up front. So I think there's an opportunity for improvement in the entire system in that regard that I hope we can continue to advocate for. So anything else you think it's helpful for people to know?
Not at this time. That was a lot to unpack there. There's a lot going on. Anybody have any other further questions about the topic? It's essentially going to put caps on things, and we need to focus in on how we believe that we need to deliver educations, and when the time would come, if the time does come, ask the community to reflect support of what we're doing.
It's a double-edged sword. The
It is,
taxpayers see a relief, and we see a burden.
Yeah, I always joke, you guys have all heard me say this. There's me, the resident, and then there's also me, the treasurer. Me, the treasurer, might say, oh man, this isn't really great. But me, the resident, kind of appreciates keeping some of my own money in my own pocket. So
Yeah, that's a good part of it, that you live in the area.
All right. Now we'll move to board action items. I'm going to do these separately since we don't have anyone noted on B. So approve a resolution for special education model policies. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Ashley, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, if you recall, last spring, the state per policy put in some guidance where we either had to accept model policies or kind of create our own. Most districts, along with us, took the model policies that were provided by the state. We actually approved those in May. There have been no changes to those. We just need to approve them to cover this school year. So yes, we approved last May's to cover last school year. That's how the timeline of the state. So we're literally just putting them on the agenda again with no changes to make sure that we meet the requirement for the 25-26 school year. And then once we do that, we will submit those model policies that the state created to the state.
All right.
So I just have one question then. Will we be approving these annually then?
Currently, I would assume so, just because of the state changes in structure, moving from the Department of Education to ODU and things. I think at least probably you're going to see this for 3 years, and then after that, I think it will probably stabilize. But I would anticipate last year, this year, and then the coming year for 26, 27.
Okay, thank you.
Have you seen the state's policy?
Pardon
Have
me?
you seen the states? From the state, have you seen it?
Yes, this is the model policy, the same one that we approved last spring. Yes,
Okay, it's the same. Okay.
it's the very same one, no changes whatsoever.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Zink, please call the roll.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. French?
Yes.
Mr. D?
Yes.
Mr. Horton?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes. All right, and then we need, okay, I need some clarification on my last meeting here. Adam, do I need a name first before I do the motion and provide it with a name?
What we had a little bit of an interesting change in our policies, that before, the board president today is always going to be acting as the president pro temp just until we establish who the new president is the following year at the organizational meeting. The policy changed for January of last year, January of 25, that just took that out and said that it just requires a nomination. So if you have a nomination.
I nominate Mrs. Schaefer to continue to be the president for the next 5
Seems
years.
easy enough.
Any further
Any other
discussion?
nominations?
I mean, it makes perfect sense.
All right, and this will just take us through until a board president is elected at the next meeting. This does not mean I'm going forward beyond the beginning of the meeting on the 12th.
Maybe.
Yeah,
So-
and it would have been, honestly, it would be a little easier if we just kept the presiding officer. However, we had a organizational meeting review. And in the organizational meeting review, I had referenced a policy, and then when I looked at our policy, that was when the change became more apparent, since we haven't done this in almost a year now.
All right, so this is referencing policy 151.
Okay, I would need some clarification. Are we voting on you continuing till
The organizational meeting.
Just
till organizational
Yes.
meeting? Oh, okay. Not that, it is after the organization.
Just need
Correct.
somebody to call the roll.
Continue.
That's
And
right.
then
Open
establish that
nominations.
first vote.
Yes.
That's, yeah.
That
it's-
concerns me then.
Yeah,
because I'm
no,
still here.
that's what I was trying to clarify.
I
This
believe-
is just for me to act until the 12th and
Yeah.
open the meeting and open it for
Yeah,
nominations.
Mr. D actually was in that capacity a couple years ago as the vice president.
I had to stand
You
in
were,
over
yeah,
here
just for
because-
the
I
first
see-
agenda,
I
2
see.
agenda items, and that was all.
I
Yeah,
became a president for 5 minutes.
Exactly.
so, yes. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Zink, please call the roll.
Did we have a motion and
I
second
thought
for
we-
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
We had a motion
I
by
did.
Ms. Casper. Did we
Me
have
and
a
then I
second?
thought Mr.
Mr. D, sorry, thank you.
I don't
No.
know.
You did.
One of the
I think
boys.
it was Doug.
Doug, sorry,
Doug,
thank you.
did.
All right. Yeah, new territory. Sorry about that.
All right, now, please call the roll.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Mr. Horton?
Yes.
Mr. D?
Yes.
Ms. French?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes. All right, now we move to treasurer's recommendations, 10A through D, approval of minutes, approval of monthly financial reports, tax incentive financing for Stony Brook, and a tax incentive financing for Vogelsang Farm. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Zink, will you please give us?
Give a little information.
Yes, please.
Yes, yeah. So what we have is the minutes is the same, financial report's the same as what we're used to. So the incentive district, we have a compensation agreement with Stony Brook. That is off of Kyle Station and Cincinnati, or Butler Warren Road, I'm sorry. This is with the city of Monroe. I kind of mentioned in the previous part that it was an annexed property to Monroe. This is also an annexed property to Monroe that happened about 20 years ago. At that time, that was intended to be a commercial industrial property, and the way I understand it is before my time, but the way I understand it, that's part of the getting the sewer and some of the utilities in to open up the Milliken Exchange that's coming. So it's kind of part of the gears of one of these is part of the development that then will work in the Liberty Township development there on Milliken. Something to note on all of these incentive districts is the municipalities have the ability to put in an incentive district that is going to make the district whole by only 25% and for 10 years maximum. So the Stony Brook, it's essentially already been put in as a 25% and 10-year. What we've done is we reworked the negotiation with them to try to make this a little more favorable. And the reason that we wanted this to be a little more favorable to Lakota was because Monroe's state share is 44%, Lakota's is 11%. So we don't get as much, and so if they take more of the portion of this, it'll have a negative impact if a lot of students come with this development and with these new homes. So because of that, this is a compensation agreement that wouldn't give us 25% of the Lakota share, but it'll give us 25% of their total collection. Essentially, it makes it a little bit better for us, and then it keeps it going for 30 years. At year 11 through 30, we will be made whole at 100%, versus it would have just rolled off, and then that would have went on to our state calculation. So if we get the state funding formula to fund it more effectively, then we will probably be happy that the values aren't on the state side books, so that we can keep that propped up like we've done with some of our other TIF districts. Then we have the Vogelsang Farm. Essentially, the Vogelsang Farm, that's a Liberty Township agreement. That is already put in at 10-year, 25% by the township. They put that in because there was a risk of that annexing to Monroe. With the annexation to Monroe, it was going to result in about 293 units is what was estimated, versus right now the overlay would be about 91 units or bigger lots. So bigger lots typically come with a larger home. That's how that's overlaid. This agreement that we have in front of us today is giving us 100% for the entire duration of the 30-year agreement. So we would be made whole the entire time on this one. This is off Sunday Road. It has not been started yet. It's just an overlay to ensure that our borders are kind of maintained, good partnership with our townships, as well as making us whole to fund our students.
When is it
I
going
think that's what I have for those two.
When is it going to start?
But the Stony Brook, if you've ever drove by that way, I drive by that way quite often, and it amazes me every time I drive by how quick these homes are popping up.
I think they did order them on Amazon.
Yeah, these are dropping in very, very quickly. And these are also, I just got notification that they're opening up phase 2. Phase 2 would be more toward 75 if you go up that way. I just happen to go that way a lot because if I go back to my hometown, I go that direction. On the Vogelsang Farm, the development has not started yet, but then this would begin once homes would actually be put up in that neighborhood. So that hasn't started at this point. And that is off of Cincinnati-Dayton Road, very north part of our district.
Is that Westchester?
Just past Wyandotte.
Is that what, Westchester?
Liberty
Oh,
Township.
Liberty
they're all
Township.
Liberty- okay.
Yeah, that is Liberty
Way
Township.
north.
That's correct.
So basically, just for the community to understand, we're talking about when something with this TIF is, it means that we are only getting 25% of the property tax that we would get normally.
Instead if we did nothing on the
Right.
Vogelsang Farm, we would get 25% of that for 10 years. If we said we're not going to approve that, however, if we do approve it, we'll get 100%. So that works a bit to our favor. On the Stony Brook, we were going to get 25% of what Lakota should had received. Now we will be getting 25% of their collection of that base. So that kind of puts our position estimated. I attached it in the update to you guys if you open that. I'd estimated that to be right around $1 million increase from where we would have been with the 25% for that first 10-year period, because years 11 through 30, we're going to be 100% either way.
But TIFs in general, that's how it works. We
TIFs
are
in-
only getting 25% of the total tax that we would have gotten, and we don't have any say in the matter, correct? The townships they don't even ask anymore, they just do it, and because they can, right?
They can. They can do,
25%, up to 25%.
we have to receive 25%. That is correct.
That's the
And for a
minimum.
maximum of 10 years. That is, yeah, that's the minimum we could receive, and the maximum would be for 10 years. That is how these are. So anytime we bring one of these to the board, that typically is meant that we've worked it to be better for Lakota.
Right.
That's why we're bringing it forward. Prime example of that would be Village North. If you drive south on Butler Warren from where that neighborhood is going in at Stony Brook, if you went south over by VOA, that did not come to the board for an approval. That is a Westchester TIF. That was 25% we would receive, and that would be for the 10-year time period. So, like, for example, if Village North is $10 million development, then of the $325,000 that would be collected, we'll get 81.5. We'll get $81,500 of that. Another TIF that, for the most part, we always work these out so that we have some funding to be able to support the students. Union Center Boulevard, for example, is a 0% TIF. So that collects roughly about $4 million per year, to which Lakota gets 0 on. The other interesting one we have is, and that's also with Westchester. Then on the Butler County side, any municipality can put one of these TIFs in. The Butler County has the University Point TIF. Think of that as Tylersville, the hospital area in there. That one we actually get 35% of. However, of the $5.6 million per year that would collect, we're getting about $2 million of that. So overall, these TIFs, we get about $7.6 million less per year on TIFs. Now, we are made whole
Just
on one
those
of them.
two?
On
Just
those two, because all of
Just
the,
those two TIFs.
because all of the other
And we have
ones,
how many?
So
we have the biggest TIF value.
who negotiates that, or is a set? Who negotiates those percentages?
State law.
Is it
25%.
state law?
Well,
The
it is.
25%?
It's legislative.
Oh, yeah, legislative.
Like in the example of Union Center, back when that was initially put in, the law back then said that you could cut the school out total. And so that's why Lakota gets 0, and that was for the 30-year period.
And then they extended it.
Yeah, the extension, now, on the extension we have will begin in 32. That is when we would be made whole to extend again for 30 years. That makes us whole, but then that does keep it off of our state values.
How much do we lose, do we lose annually in TIFs, just out of curiosity?
7.6.
Total, all the TIFs, or just
That's off Union Center. All the rest of them were made whole on.
made whole?
Except for, we don't have Village North come on yet.
Right.
But if that's estimated to be 325-ish.
I do want to point out a distinction, though, is that we are delaying funding, right? So eventually, we are made whole, but we are delaying funding, and we are entering into a time period of increasingly unstable funding from school standpoint. We just talked about how we're losing $3 million because of the capping of inside millage. And so I think that's something that's different in this age, is that, you know, traditionally, okay, we were delaying it to spur growth. Now we're in an environment where we're over capacity. We don't have enough classrooms for students. We don't have enough room to put them in. And we see these developments happening. And while certain entities are trumpeting the power of TIFs to expand and grow, I really appreciate Liberty Township working with us, especially when it's a residential, that we know is going to bring more students in. So we're going to have to service more students to make sure that we're kept whole in the time period that we're going to be servicing these families. When you look at some of those examples, when you look at how much time was deferred on the revenue from Union Center, there's tons of people in the community who point to me and go, well, what about all that money from Union Center that you guys got from that advanced enrollment? Yeah. It's not there. And so I think that's something that as a conversation we need to start having with our community, and we need to make sure the community understands that as more and more of these TIFs start happening in a time of unstable funding, it becomes more perilous for us to actually lean in and delay funding for 10 years and commiserate with us. So I appreciate the effort that we've done to this. I really appreciate Liberty Township on this. Yeah. This is huge for us. And I know Westchester just announced a huge TIF that they are putting in place. I encourage all of our townships to partner with us to make sure that we have enough funding in the current time when these families are coming in, that we can make sure that we're servicing those students. And then also, as we're expanding this, let's keep an eye on that, because it's not just the operations that we have to teach the students. When we're at capacity and we don't have room for kids, that's going to be an impact on why we've been talking about the finances that we've been having.
Well, but just to clarify, one of the two of these were being made whole. The other were still not being made whole.
Just the Liberty
until-
Township. Yep.
Well, yeah,
We're made a little bit better
right.
than we
Right. It's
would've,
improved from the
could've been.
25%, but it's still costing us a significant amount, even with that TIF going
Yeah,
in,
'cause
while
that's
still having kids to serve.
Stony Brook is advertised as 213 units. Now, as you drove by, they're pretty large homes. It's a pretty large parcel of land. But yes, it is important for us to maintain as much of the property values as we can in the collection, because we are not the same on what the state funds or co-funds us with.
But I think there is a big misconception in the community that for most of these tips, we're getting 100%. And I think we need to start being clearer on the impact that when you're losing over $7 million a year, the impact that has on your financials.
Right, and we do receive, you'll see this on the other revenue line. That's where that'll come in when you look at the forecasted assumptions. You see the payment in lieu of taxes line. We get around 17 million. So we do get a good portion, but we aren't made whole on all.
The question I have then is, why do we have to approve this? Why are we approving it if it is already a set?
Why we have to approve this is because it goes beyond the time frame. It goes beyond the 10-year time frame, but then makes us whole.
Oh, okay.
And it's better than just the basic 25%, that if we don't approve, we get 25%. So this, at least, we're getting a little bit more, because again, they can just put it in at 25% regardless of what we do. So Adam has negotiated better than 25%, but less than whole.
But less than whole. Like, go back to the Village North. That's where the Whole Foods is going in and things, over by VOA, over by Costco, correct. We didn't have the ability to get anywhere beyond the 25% 10-year, and that's why the board didn't have an opportunity to approve something different.
I see. Makes sense.
So essentially the way I described it is we are the only government entity that kind of has to deal with the hand that we're dealt.
Yeah.
You know, and so whenever we're dealt a hand, anything we can do to improve the position of that, we always try to do. And if we can, we bring it to the board, because it may require an approval to enhance that a bit. And if not, then we just have to forecast and schedule and make sure that we build that in so that everybody's in the loop on. Now it becomes tricky on when these things fall off and when we begin getting the collection, so that on the academic side, everybody knows what to expect, or it doesn't result in, let's say, budget adjustments that could negatively impact what programming we have. We have to make sure that we keep these all built in, modeled, so that we know when they're coming to us.
Did you want to? No.
No,
Okay.
I think just that made whole comment, I know I've been in several meetings where that is said, and so I appreciate that explanation of truly what that means, because I think that registers different than what the reality is of being made whole. So I think that was very helpful.
Is there anything we can do to help you with the negotiations on places like Village North?
I believe at this time with Village North, I don't know that there's much we could do about that, but I think that part of the community groups, us all getting together, communicating better, having these conversations, those dialogues is what's going to produce all of us working together, because at the end of the day, it's part of like what Ms. Schaefer was talking about on appraisals of property and things. If we're not all working together on this, it could result in over collection or more collection of tax dollars or asked to the community than maybe it could be avoided. And that's what I think we're all shooting for here.
All right.
Continue to participate, continue to have the conversations and work on the relationships with other elected officials. That's what's going to be critical.
Yeah, there's got to be a balance, because we can't continue to just be told, here's 1,000 more students and no more money. It does have to be a partnership and a conversation because you're going to get to a point where if we don't have the funds we need to educate the children, no one's going to want to come to the developed areas. And so we have to, that's why I think the lines of communication and the collaboration is a good thing.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Zink, please call the roll.
Click that, sorry. Ms. French?
Yes.
Mr. D?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Mr. Horton?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes. All right, we have superintendent's recommendations, A through E, approval of personnel items, a program of study approval, PSAT, fee revision, approval of field trips, and approval of donations. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, would you care to?
Yeah, of note on the agenda, of particular height is the program of study approval. My understanding is that we have not been in a cadence of approving that, and the reason that I think that that is important to do is that a program of studies, first of all, they normally exist at the 7 through 12 level because it's about course selections and the course offerings that students can choose from. They normally do not exist in a K-6 level because they're more regimented or kind of static courses that students take in elementary. But the reason I think it is important, you know, the board approves basically curriculum, right, courses and standards. And essentially, a program of study is what a student can take. It's like our course catalog, if you think of your college experience, of the repertoire or the offerings that exist for 7 through 12 students. And so I think it's important that we do approve that every year. Now, with that said, you saw 3 documents. You know, you saw a kind of the entirety program of studies. I promise you we will not be going through that page by page tonight. But I think it's important, and I'm going to invite Mr. Wheatley up to the stage as well. I think it's important that we have a baseline. If we are going to approve this every year, this would be our baseline year. And so Mr. Wheatley is certainly going to give us an overview of the changes from what you've experienced from the program of studies previously. And then going forward every year, we would approve essentially just the changes, revisions, deletions, additions. I think this is very, very helpful, not only from a governance standpoint, but also just from an internal workings. And what I mean by that is approving a program of studies really helps you keep longitudinal data and to see kind of where we've been and where we're going. As leaderships change and transitions change, sometimes people want to bring courses back or revise courses, and you can say, hey, let me show you the history of how we've actually done that. And so that longitudinal data, I think, can be important in transitions. So Mr. Wheatley, like I said, is going to hit the highlights of that change document that I know that you've seen. And then if there are any additional questions just about the program of studies itself, we can certainly look at those as well. But the program of studies, what you're approving would be the program of studies that will go into effect for the 26-27 school year. So these changes would be forthcoming that we're approving into next year.
All right, thank you for having me. Yeah, excited to cover the changes. I mean, each year, though we haven't had it approved, we have kind of given people an update, and I think it's every year that when we give the state report card presentation, you know, we've seen a lot of the improvements in our state report card, and even our students who come up and sometimes are highlighted are a reflection of those changes we made year after year. So this is a really exciting time, I think, for all of us. Ashley wanted me to go through all 67 pages of the program of study one by one, but I decided to just be a little more brief and go over the highlights. And I'll leave some time for questions at the end. So a couple of major changes, just we removed financial lit as an option for freshmen. Teacher feedback, you know, really was saying that that was a little bit more relevant for upperclassmen than freshmen with some of the topics, but it also gave the ability for students to open up their freshman schedule to take some of those career and college pathways that start in the freshman year. One of the other large changes is that we added AP World History to the freshman level. We had a lot of success with adding AP Human Geo to the freshman level. Also with our changes to the junior high programming, we needed some adjustments to the world history course offerings at 9th grade. And so this adds more rigor and more AP and advanced opportunities for the freshmen. We're adding Lakota Career Connections, which is, I think, probably something I'd love to talk to you guys more about in the future and maybe highlight at a future time. For all of our folks watching at home and our community members, this is a great group of students to connect with, but I can you know, reach out and talk to folks about this later. But making sure that this opportunity is provided at both East and West, and these students essentially are providing opportunities and scaling out experiences and real-world learning opportunities to all of our high school students. You might have heard a lot about CTAG. CTAG was quite a popular topic across the state of Ohio for our high schools. That's the Career Technical Assurance guide. And what that is it's kind of like a cross between College Credit Plus and AP. Like if those two things were similar, it's their version in the career tech world for college credit taken at the high school level. It works a little more similar to AP, where you don't have the ability to get that credit until after you pass the exam at the end of those courses. And these courses are picked by the state of Ohio, not by us, of which ones get the weighted credit or which ones are CTAG. And then the state made the change through Ohio law that the CTAG courses are all given weighted credit, so they're the same standard essentially as AP. With government, over the years, we've talked about government and related to our OST. So what we've decided to do is to increase the amount of time that students take government from a semester to a year long. This is more in alignment with other school districts. A lot of school districts who are performing at the level we want to in government have a year-long course, so we're making the adjustments to that starting next school year. You can see there that we're keeping also the CCP and AP government options the same as they have been, but the CP government option for semester will move to a year-long course. Added weighted credit to level 3 and 4 world language courses just to make it consistent with the rest of our programming. And then in the music area, we have added AP music theory from teacher and student request. We will now be one of the few hundred schools across the country that offer an officiating course. This is a really unique opportunity for students to actually get their license to start officiating. I think for all of us who are part of parents and youth sports have had either games canceled or the threat of games canceled because of not having enough officials. Not only does it help with that, but it also is a way for our students to get really good experience and make money, make actually pretty good money as high school students. So this will be a great opportunity for our students. And then we've made a few changes in our EL classes, allowing them to be repeatable. And then there's a few Butler Tech programming changes specifically at their campuses, and you can read through those. But those are at their campuses, not ours. So I will open up to questions if you have any.
One of the things I do want to mention that the curriculum department and I have talked about as we were talking about the program of studies and just future opportunities that we're going to explore, graduation requirements, weighted courses, balance out, those are things that are important concepts. But we talked about, and as we heard again in our listening session before the meeting, is student feedback, particularly in 712. Students can tell you what they would like to see, what they don't find, maybe as beneficial, things of that nature. So in the future, we will be integrating student voice, meaning what electives would they like to see, and because that student feedback is very important, not only whether it makes its way into the program of studies or not. Sometimes those are very easy fixes, like financial literacy, which I'll talk about, but sometimes those are long-term investments that you have to work with the treasurer, you have to work with the board about space and money. When you talk about family and consumer science, when you talk about certain art classes, sometimes those have a budget that needs to be in place around those. And so those student interest surveys, along with just our curriculum department and our forethought and vision around curriculum, will be coupled together to essentially influence our program of studies. When I talk about, and Andrew led with this, of financial literacy, in my student feedback and listening and learning, the students, one of the themes that came up was financial literacy. And they talked about that they took it as freshmen and they didn't really understand its relevancy. They were like, it was such a missed opportunity. I was too young. I just didn't really understand all the financial questions I had about college and life and savings and all of those things. And so I think just leading the change that you see very first and that Andrew talked about, that came from student feedback, but also the curriculum department of why we thought that change was important. So again, continuing to integrate that student voice because students ultimately should be an integral part of their own learning. Questions for Andrew?
Yes, I have a question. Why are we approving this now? This is 2026, 2027.
Yes, because student selection will start in the spring. So students pick their courses for the 26-27 school year starting in like February, in the spring.
Okay.
And so we wanted to be proactive to make sure that you had it approved before students selected a course that maybe wouldn't have been approved.
Yeah, even to add to that, we have to get it printed and things like that. So this is going to the printers tomorrow as soon as we get approval, in order to get it done in time for students or for a course selection.
Does the board have anything to do with making any changes on this?
The board is looking at what courses we offer. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that, and I want to be super clear here, curriculum is standards, okay? Mm-hmm. That is what we teach. but you teach those standards in courses. That's how we deliver those to students. And so I think it's important, because of your governance role, that we are approving the course catalog or the courses that students can take to meet those standards. And so that is why I think board approval is important, because it should meet the vision of our governance team, not only from a curriculum standpoint, but there's a fiscal investment when you talk about approving courses, because courses sometimes come again with equipment and textbooks and staffing. And so I think making sure that the governance team certainly knows what is being offered to our students and the long-term impact, both educationally and financially, is important governance role.
I ask these questions because I'm not comfortable approving something that I will not be here to execute. That's why I'm asking, what has the board to do with this particular change?
So this is essentially saying that the board approves the courses that parents and students will see in their program of studies and that they will select to take this spring in enactment for 26-27.
And I will say, in my time on the board, we have, to your kind of point, I think, Andrew, of it ebbs and flows. We've always presented it. Sometimes it's been for approval, and other times it's just been for information, and we've moved forward. But it is something that has always been part of the conversation with the board to make sure that we're all consistent and supporting what is being offered to our students.
And I think, too, I think the curriculum department spends a lot of time making the program of studies and from the input from the teachers and the students. And so for me, it's just reaffirming that the experts know what they're doing.
You don't think the new board will have more input on it than current board?
Well, this will be an annual thing that we do. I think part of this, though, is timing, to make sure that we are able to do scheduling, so student selection and ultimately master scheduling, which is building our schedules for the 26-26 school year. Normally, this is done in the fall, even though board-wise, it's done in the fall, so that programs of studies can be printed for parents and students to then select in May. So next year, at the very same time, we will do this with our new Board of Education, and this will just be an annual cadence.
And it's not that they don't select till May. They're
Correct.
starting to
Correct.
select.
They select in January. January and
So
February.
if you do this on January 12th, you're going to be late?
Yes.
Yes, for printing purposes, yes.
Because they start making their schedules, getting the information on the
As
program
soon
of
as
studies.
as soon as winter break comes back, parents
January.
have this document, and then counselors push into classrooms right away to make sure that students have really good detail about the course selection that they're happening.
I hope you understand why I'm asking this, because I know I'm not going to be here to execute this, and I don't want a situation where there will be like somebody pointing back to something that I voted for, that whatever problem might come from this, that somebody might have an excuse to say, I wasn't part of this, I didn't approve it.
And ultimately, I think, Isaac, when you're in transition, that's kind of what happens, right? I mean, I think some things are improved that maybe somebody might do differently or think differently about, but they will certainly have the opportunity when they sit at the table if there are any problems or discussions. And not only for approval, we can continue to have that conversation prior as well.
Well, I'll say, Mr. Wheatley, thanks for all the hard work here, and I don't see what trouble could come from it. It looks really good. So, and as a parent, I want this done so I can get that registering going real quick, because my kid's already asking about it. So I do have a couple questions, though. One's a comment. Really excited to see the officiating course be added. At some of the capital conferences, I sat through presentations from districts that have implemented this, and it's been fantastic. Not just for, like you said, making sure we can actually have all these games take place, but the kids have really, some have even gone into careers in officiating behind it. So it's great expansion. When we think about career readiness as opening up new venues and new avenues for careers, which I like. I did have one question regarding the econ and government. At least the way that the summary document that you gave us listed, it makes it sound like economics is currently a Lakota graduation requirement. Is that true?
Yeah, that is correct. It's currently a Lakota graduation requirement. It is not in board policy as a graduation requirement. It's just in our graduation requirements kind of from internal process. So just to clarify a little bit, the state requires instruction in economics to graduate, and so what that will be done is through our government course. It's embedded in the standards in all of our government courses, so students will still have to take government. They'll still get the required instruction by state law. but we will remove the CP government, or the CP Econ course, sorry, but we'll continue to have AP Econ, and there's also a variety of CCP Econ courses that students can take if they really want to pursue more in economics.
And that change was made about 5 years ago. The state decided, rather than imposing a full-fledged graduation requirement, that the content just had to be taught. And so basically, when a student takes whatever designated course, whether that's government or maybe it is a standalone economics, then in EMIS, we report that they have covered that content and set of standards.
And with financial literacy becoming a state requirement also, that also kind of influences this. Not that the standards are the same and all the learning is the same in those two courses, but there is some overlap. So all students will be getting, you know, a level of the same amount or more actual econ instruction than students were getting prior to the addition of the financial lit requirement.
Yeah, I'm glad we're addressing the standards. I think as we move forward, I'd love us to consider long-term where the role of an economic-specific course lays, because I think there's value in getting, especially around economics. I can think of all the discussions we've had with community members where some foundational understanding of economics isn't necessarily in place, and I think it's of value to us as we think about the holistic education of our students to make sure that they have what they need to compete in the business world as well as society and understand things. And so while it's embedded in the other courses and we're meeting our requirements, there's a chance for us to actually develop them a little bit further. And so I understand we still have the AP economics and those students, that makes sense, but making sure that there's equal access to kind of deliver more than the standards on this long term. It doesn't affect 26, 27. I mean, I understand why we're doing it here, but longer term as we look at our graduation requirements, which I think, you know, something we're actively looking at, let's focus in on if there's a role there for that. I'd hate to move away from that long term. But
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. At our October board meeting, we shared, you all shared a report card update, and two of the questions that I asked were, what is the most influential factor that has contributed to the growth up to 4.5 stars, and how can we help you get to 5 stars? And some of the things that were said were helping students to level up from accelerated to accomplished, or from, and then targeted intervention for some of our higher level learners across the board. You even mentioned adding world language, so this is no surprise. And then creating more advanced placement course opportunities for our students. And so thank you for taking those things, putting them on paper, making them come to life. We asked you, how do we get to 5 stars? You told us, and now you're really bringing it to fruition. So I'm glad that I could go back and kind of reread some of those things that were said and compare them right to what's on our paper today. And I'm excited to see the growth that this continues to bring for our students in Lakota. I think these are great opportunities for them.
Thank you.
I just want to thank our curriculum department. You know, the documents, the beautiful documents that you see, just the level of detail and iteration that those go through to really become kind of public documents for our families and usable documents for our students. I can attest, having lived in the curriculum role for a long time, there's a lot of fine-tooth detail that goes into these, so super, super appreciative. And I know we're really excited about some long-term visioning conversations around curriculum that we will dip into in 26, 27.
Kelly, was there?
Nope, I'm good.
So
Thank you, though.
I do have a question. I know we got rid of our volunteer requirements partially because in my opinion, just me, that it seemed like some of our kids were taking those classes online or through other means simply so they didn't have to deal with our volunteer requirement. Is there any way that, I do think though that's so valuable for kids to at least have some volunteer opportunities, or not opportunities?
So we've actually talked about this. I think that will go into that longer conversation around graduation requirements. You know, certain districts, I can think of Madeira, you know, they certainly have, I think it's 30 hours that are required for graduation. There's also the balance. I think sometimes you hear feedback that you want philanthropy to come from an intrinsic motivation that are required, but I also think, and I think this will come through also in our student surveys. Our students like to give back, right? And we have very, very involved students. And so I think that will be one of the conversations that we pursue in our long-term graduation requirements is how does that fit and how do you find the balance of very meaningful but also just good civic duty?
Great. And then my other question would be, what's high on the wish list of didn't get in this year, but really hoping we can get there in the future, and you can punt on that if that's too,
I'm not sure there's
too mean
enough
of a
time.
question.
There's not enough time, yeah.
For that.
Yeah.
I just know that this work we do 24 months out typically. I mean, that is how this type of stuff works, and you're seeing it now about 9 months before students are in those classes. So we're constantly working with Ashley and team and trying to listen to teacher feedback, student feedback, following what the state's doing, and just also trying to keep up on like what is actually happening out in the world, because ultimately our goal is to prepare kids for when they leave. And so keeping up the speed on that. But I think a big part of that, which Dr. Riley's already alluded to, which is strategic planning and taking a look at graduation requirements in a holistic sense. And I think it makes sense to make larger changes when we're in that place than it is right now. This is actually kind of a light changes historically than what we've done, because I think it makes more sense to do these larger changes as we're thinking bigger picture. I will give one, which is business courses. We could definitely use a redesign and making our business program more robust. So that's one that I think you can, I wanted to give you at least something concrete as you leave.
When Christina talks about what gets you to 5 stars, it is always wonderful to look at external standards, right? Meaning the state report card, ACT, SAT, but to reach 5 stars and beyond, your internal standards have to be higher than the external standards. And so I think really having those visioning conversations and thinking about looking at our data and our student voice and really making sure we're meeting that X standard, but we're going beyond that, I think will continue to move the needle. And I think there's some very exciting conversations on the horizon. But I also think when you talk about a program of studies and offerings, there is a financial implication to that, right, as far as staffing and courses and materials. And so it's always striving that balance and working with Adam very closely to make sure that we have that projected, right? If it's not next year, is it 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 9 years from now? Because to Adam, or to Mr. Wheatley's point, it takes some time to bring some of those things to fruition, and you have to have a plan.
Great, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Do you want to talk about the PSAT
Yes,
fee?
the PSAT fee revision, you're probably like, Ashley, this is the thing that keeps coming up every time. If you remember, we approved it previously because we currently pay for juniors to take the PSAT, but we also wanted to give any student who wanted to take that almost as like an opportunity, or some people call it a practice version, so they get comfortable with it. We were allowing them to do that, so we approved a fee for $18. The issue with that is when we approved it for $18, actually, the good side of that is our students were actually charged less. They were charged $14 and some change. Well, the problem is the fee has to be exactly what the students are charged. So instead of going back and kind of going every year of how College Board is going to make up their mind, you will see on the agenda that it will say we're going to change that instead of a dollar amount to the College Board set rate. So whatever they set that for, we should be good to go, whether it's $14, $18, $16, so that we just make sure that we don't have to have this moving target for them to land on what they're actually going to charge students. That's very similar to AP rates. Sometimes you see as well, AP rates are normally set pretty late in the summer after fee approval, and so sometimes schools do put as College Board rate because sometimes it'll go up $1 or 50 cents, something that you don't have to go back. So that just explains why you're seeing it again for the 3rd time.
And again, why people might take the PSAT is because it's
National merit.
National merit finalist, and so if somebody might want to practice as a freshman or sophomore in order to try to get a score that would qualify them as juniors, because the junior score is the only one that counts. So, any further questions, discussions, thoughts? All right, hearing none.
I have a question. So for donations, there was nothing attached. Are there no donations that we're approving?
There are donations. I thought she had scanned those in. Maybe she just didn't get it linked. Yes, there's a whole slew of donations. Doug, I have them in my hand. Let me see here really quick. And there's a spreadsheet.
You needed to know?
I
I
review it
do
every
not
year,
see
every week,
those.
every week.
Yeah, I do not see those linked, but there
Yeah, I
are.
didn't see them either. I was
Yep,
going to bring
they're
that up too,
not.
Doug.
Yeah.
So should we perhaps,
We can certainly wait. I mean, I have the list of donations, which are here, but we can certainly wait if you'd like to, and I can kick those until next month if we need to.
Adam, there's no impact if we wait to approve till next
Table
month?
it.
Okay, then I'd like to make a motion to separate that out.
Okay, no problem.
So separate approved donations from the,
A, so,
Okay.
We'll vote on these separate and just table it.
so
We're going to vote
help
on-
me
So
with.
we're just gonna move
Do we
separate.
just want to revise the motion to be A through D? Or what's the simplest way to do this?
We've already have a motion.
Well, if we have a motion to.
I will rescind my motion to make it easier. You guys figure it out.
Second, I can second. Because
What? We had motion for A through E. Can we modify that motion to be A through D?
Yeah, that would be, yeah.
That'd
So
probably be the
Mr.
easiest.
Horton made a motion.
So I will make a motion to modify to be A through D, and then we'll have a separate vote on E.
Did we already, so do we have to, I love when we do this. So what about the original motion? Did you make the
just
original
amended
motion?
So
You
I
just
made a
made a
motion to
motion to
amend
amend
it.
it.
Someone needs to second it, so then we can change
I
the,
second it.
What about the motion that was already made? How do we?
That's it.
I'm
He
amending
just
it.
he's
He is
He's just
amending it.
amending. And then we'd vote on the amended, and then we'll move forward with that. And then the second was by,
I second it.
so that it was a motion to modify the vote for A through D by Mr. Horton, by, seconded by Mr. D.
Yes,
Call the vote
yes.
on that.
Please call the
Mr.
roll.
Horton,
Yes.
Mr. D,
Yes.
Ms. Casper,
Yes.
Ms. French,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer.
Yes. So now we will vote on the amended motion of superintendent's recommendations,
A through D, and then E will be separate, correct?
Do I have a motion? Oh, wait, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Please call, any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Ms. French,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. D,
Yes.
Ms. Casper,
Yes.
Schaefer.
Yes. So do,
And then
Do you need
E.
a motion to table?
a
Or we
motion,
can just-
Motion to table E,
Or we could just vote no, right?
or you can just
And then
vote it down.
Yeah, I've already done. I'm presenting next month.
Do we have a motion?
Did
For
I
E,
Motion? Did you motion?
Motion.
Mr. D,
Second.
further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. D,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
No.
Ms. Casper,
Yes.
Wait, I think we need to clarify.
Yeah,
We
we're
are,
voting
we are
for table.
voting to accept the donations that were not attached. So,
So we don't know what they are.
correct.
Oh, oh.
I thought we were
So,
voting to
would-
table
Then
that.
we have to vote again then.
I
That- we
thought
shouldn't
that's
have
what we were
tabled
voting on.
That's
Yeah.
what we were voting
Yes.
on, yeah.
So what are we voting on?
We shouldn't
You're
have-
voting to accept the donations that were not attached,
however, there
not the
wasn't
table.
any donations attached.
Right.
Yes.
Oh,
I mean, right? I thought
We
we were.
don't
Hold
know
on,
what the
hold on.
donations are that you're accepting.
yes.
So the minutes will reflect there isn't anything attached.
Can you vote again? Can you go
I
back?
thought we were voting to table until next
Because it
time.
wasn't clear.
Then I'm voting no.
Yeah, I'm voting no.
Change my mind.
Okay?
I thought the
I'm
motion was.
voting no.
How about if I just vote no and then Isaac doesn't have to go back and change his vote?
There you go.
Now it's down. Okay.
And because we voted no, we will bring those back in January attached for your
Yes,
approval.
yes.
I thought that's, okay. Good
And-
gosh.
So,
I haven't
let's,
voted.
Julie
so
hasn't
I'll vote
voted.
no.
let's do a roll call here. Mr. D,
No.
Mr. Horton,
No.
Ms. Casper.
No.
Ms. French,
No.
Ms. Schaefer.
No. So you guys are just trying to make me look bad on my
Yeah.
last meeting. What the heck?
It's been a long night.
I just love the community's outrage when the board just voted against all donations.
5 minutes to be the president.
What the heck? All right, sorry, it's been a rough one. All right, and now we will move to closing comments, but as part of closing comments, we are also going to recognize our board members.
At the top of my resume, it says, every teacher a leader a teacher, and every student a success. And I'm specifically talking to all of you, but more specifically tonight to Isaac and Christina. Along your way in time with us, you have been a teacher. You have shared your experiences, you've shared your ideas, you've shared your passions and your feelings. You have certainly been a leader. You have led us in this governance team with your input and your decisions, not only with me sitting here, but prior to my time even. And certainly, you have helped every student be a success. You have helped push our students and help them thrive and help them grow, and that is because of your governance and your passion and your insight. And so because of that, I will bring it over to Vanna in just a second. This is a piece of student art. So this is from our Lakota West student who did this artwork, and we wanted to give it to you as a reminder so that you can display it and be reminded of your time on the Lakota Board of Education, because we are truly thankful for your time and your heart and your service. And so we hope that you not only think of our wonderful students in our community, but hopefully you think of this team and the wonderful work that you have done in your time as part of the Lakota School Board of Education. So thank you.
Thank you.
And as part of our board governance team, we are so thankful, again, as all the wonderful things Dr. Whiteley stated, but also you came in at critical times. We've had some challenging times. We may not always see things the same way, but I am very proud of all the work that has been done by this governance team to have respectful dialogue, to be focused on student success, and to be focused on the future of Lakota. And I feel like we have done great work as a team and appreciate your individual input and making sure that we put Lakota first and our students first and continued the hard work. So thank you for doing that and putting us on a great trajectory into the future that we can continue to grow from. So with that, we'll give you all a round of applause for your time and talent and treasure that you have shared with us. So thank you. So, and with that, we'll move to closing comments. So anything else?
Again, I just want to personally thank you for my experience as a new superintendent, for this being the governance team, and particularly for you too. I wish you all the best in whatever path life takes you next, but we are certainly better because of your time with us. And just winter break is right around the corner, so hopefully you can get some rest and relaxation. And as Isaac reminds us, he's like, I will not be back in January.
Mr. Zane?
Yeah, shout out to Isaac and Christina. Good job, good work. We'll miss you guys. It's been nice having you all on the board. The officiating course, that was a really neat ad for me. I've officiated in my days, and that is some great real-world learning. Every kid should have to go through that at least once, I think. So, yeah, good work on that. I am curious, does that include like OHSAA, or is that just for the small kids? Because that's good. Also, shout out to Matt Patella. He's our budgetary director. He completed his mastery level 1 back in October, but we missed the board meeting to get that over, and so he was on the agenda tonight. That was, again, it was a process that we put in place in the finance department so that once somebody could kind of take their training into their own hands, see what the expectations are for the positions, and then it's kind of a whole team effort, and then they can kind of promote themselves as they go. So that's good. He met level 1, and finally, happy holidays to everyone. This will be our last meeting until next year. So hope everybody has a wonderful holiday and stays warm. It has been definitely cold the last few days.
I want to start with thanking our curriculum department. I love to watch Andrew speak of curriculum. He gets so jazzed, and they do a great job. So thank you for all the hard work that goes into that. Our students are crazy amazing. I had the pleasure of going to Lakota East Gift of Music on Friday. It rivals any professional event you have seen by an orchestra or a band. Very, very sad that the 2 performances on Saturday had to be canceled, but totally understand the safety of the 289 teenage drivers going to is more important than the actual event, but it was very, very wonderful event. Oh, Christina and Isaac. Again, like everyone said, thank you, Christina, especially for jumping in kind of in the middle of, you know, a phase that was tough for us to handle, and a lot of taking away from the job that the board should have done. And it was a pleasure to have you be able to hit the ground running and know that your years of experience were really a benefit to this board. And we will miss you. We will miss you, and we might come visit you in the little people's school. But thank you for all that you have done. Isaac, my friend, 7 o'clock meetings. I'm going to call you on the next 7 o'clock meeting just because I know how much you like it, and I'm going to ask you to bring me coffee when I call you, so be prepared. But no, again, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for stepping up. Thank you for realizing after you took the oath of office that it's not what you thought it would be, and your ability to be able to work with us and know that we have differences, but have a respectful conversation. So I appreciate that. And again, we wish you best of luck with whatever your next endeavor is. So thank you both, and have a great holidays to everyone. All right. Isaac?
Can we go from this way?
Let them go last.
This way.
Okay. You want me to go next? Sure. Okay. Thank you for this beautiful artwork. I have a lovely little office full of little people that I will most definitely put this in and remember fondly the time that I spent with all of you. It has been a true honor to serve alongside all of you and to serve this community that is super special to me. I'm going to get choked up. I believe that our community is in good hands with our new leaders that are joining you on the board, and just know that I will always be cheering you on from the sidelines. I do wish that I could continue this role. However, life is happening around me and I have to move on. But it has truly been an honor to get to know all of you as people and as coworkers. This governance team has done a lot of really great work since I have joined it in just a short time. And so I've been honored to serve with all of you and honored to serve this country, or this community, and this country. Well, not really this country, this community. So I'll be cheering you on. I'll see you at lots of events and everywhere around because that's just what I do. But good luck in the future and happy holidays.
You make it sound like we're going to war up here or something.
I didn't mean
Some days,
Some
some days it feels that way.
I get emotional and words just fly out.
I will say, I think, everyone's on the same theme tonight. So first, Mr. D, I have really enjoyed getting to know you. I think I watched for 2 years out in the seats, and then now I've had the privilege to join you up here for 2 years. And during that time, we talk a lot about what the community went through and stuff, but I've gotten an insight into what you personally went through. And so I think, one, I've always appreciated the way that you call it as you see it. You come in with an open mind, and you really evaluate the really real of what's going on, and you don't let people kind of tell you, what to think. You have your thoughts, which has really made us a better organization and a better governance team. I also appreciate the fact that you are clearly not coming back in January, but you made it to January because I don't think a lot of people would have stuck around as long as you have on this. So again, personally, have really enjoyed becoming your friend, getting to meet some of your family, and everything that you've given to Lakota. I personally appreciate as a board member, but also as father of children who are in the district. So appreciate that, and I don't think I will ever forget banana pudding.
Never.
Going forward. So, and then Mrs. French, I think there was about probably a good 8 months or so. Every meeting I kept saying, "You make this more fun," and I really meant it. Like, you added a nice balance to the governance team. But what has been even more impactful is that you bring deep expertise as a professional, and a willingness to kind of step in at a time when a lot of people wouldn't have. And so that dedication to the community, to our school district, and then that expertise was really impactful. But I've also seen how you come at everything from a very moral standpoint and an ethical and principled approach. And I think that example has helped us, as we wrestle with a lot of tough issues, really helped focus us to get to better solutions. So I really appreciate everything that you've given to us. I know I'll see you at games and everything, but it'll be less fun. No offense to our incoming board members, but it's just going to be less fun. So thank you for everything, and that's all I have.
Okay. My turn now?
Your turn.
Oh, this is emotional, but I will try as much as possible to control myself because It has been an honor and privilege to serve with each and every one of you. I know we have our differences. We disagree behind the scene. We work it out. We disagree openly, and we work it out, and we came this far. I am so proud of each and every one of you for accommodating me, accepting me, especially when this last year that I had some challenges from my job, schedule changes. You all accommodated and changed one of our meetings to 7 a.m. That means a lot to me, because you allow me to stay on and to finish my term. So I can't thank you enough. But first of all, I give glory to God for standing with me, going through these 4 years. First of all, I will thank everyone that voted for me. I will thank the Republican Party that had confidence in me, endorsed me. They never cared how I looked like. All they cared was the content of my character. They endorsed me and raised funds for me. Somebody like me, who was not born in this country but naturalized, had an opportunity to be elected. That is a big deal. So if they had not endorsed me and accepted me and put me forward, I'm not sure I would have been able to win an election to serve. So I'm not going to mention names because I might miss some names, but particularly I want to thank State Senator George Lang. Right from the time somebody called me and nominated me to run, I met with him, and he has always been my person, my contact person that I go back to. And he has never, ever told me, Isaac, this is what you're going to do. He said, Isaac, we trusted you. You are elected. You go and do your thing. Just make sure that success is the bottom line. So I owe these thanks to him and many others. I'm not going to be able to mention names. People don't know what it means to be somebody like me to run for office. I know there's no way I would have been elected. But the people of this school district agreed with me, counted me worthy. They even saw what I did not see in me and gave me this opportunity. I'll never take this lightly. I will never take this lightly in my life. I want to thank each and every one that stood with me when I was going through my trials, because I have tried my best to be my best and never impress anybody to make them happy based on lies and based on things that I have not confirmed. I stood my ground. Some people thought they can destroy me eventually. The truth matters. They ended up destroying themselves, probably. That's what I think. I am very, very proud of what you all have done for me. I'm very proud of our students. When these kids were singing here this night, I was almost in tears. I said, this is what I wanted to see. That's what I came for. And I'm glad we did it together. And I saw this year we maintained. So I'm going to start with Dr. Ashley. Dr. Whiteley, thank you. I spoke to you personally that I was afraid for you, and I thought you won't be able to deliver. But I want to tell you that I've seen your work day and night, how you keep us informed engaged. Thank you. And I want to continue to see what, I'm going to see what you're going to continue to do. And I believe 5 points is possible. Adam, thank you. Sometimes I call you in the night. Sometimes I call you early in the morning. Sometimes you have been truthful to yourself and you stand strong and you never let anybody change you. That's awesome. Thank you. We have capable hands in the administrative office. I am going to be chairing both of you. Please keep on going. Ms. Casper, I have learned that I'm trying to control my hands. When you drink coffee, I should not sit next to you because it's not going to be good because my hands and probably your hands will be kicking each other all the time. So I have learned not to drink coffee, and I changed. And the person that changed my style of drinks is Mrs. Schaefer. She drinks tea. She doesn't drink coffee. In the last year, I've been drinking tea, and I've seen what tea has done for me.
Who knew?
So thank you so much for being yourself, and I appreciate both of your leadership. We disagree many times, but every one of us have our own ideologies and what we believe in. But all we are focused is the kids. So thank you. Doug, what I've learned from you is Mr. Detail. You are always very detailed. I've learned to compose myself, to control myself from you. Thank you so much for being who you are, and I believe the board is going to be in good hands, and I'll be cheering you. I hope you step up. Ms. French, thank you so much. I know you came in as a result of some of the things that I had to go through, and then you step up. One of the things I saw very strong in you is curriculum knowledge. Every meeting, I always want to hear from you. As somebody who had worked here and knows the curriculum very well, you have always led me to decisions that I make. So above all, I want to thank you all, and I want to thank the community. I'm still here. If there are opportunities, come up. I'm willing to help. And above all, I'm going to thank my Lord Jesus Christ, whom I pray to throughout my times of trouble, throughout the time that I went through my case. He had always kept me, and today I am glad. This is my last meeting, except if there's going to be a special emergency meeting. If not, if we don't have to meet again in this forum, I want to tell you that I appreciate each and every one of you. And I've learned a lot from every one of you, and I'm going to be adding that to my profile. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
I don't know how to follow. Again, I already spoke to both of you, and so I think we'll just say I hope everyone has a wonderful break, and everyone ends the semester strong and enjoys and replenishes over the holidays so that we can come back strong. I can't believe we're already at second semester, halfway through another year. I'm sure Dr. Whiteley feels the same way as time flies by. So thank you for everything that everyone has done to pour into our students the first half of the year, and thank you for this team, and onward to 2026. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
Can I do the honor?
Yes. So moved?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Zink.
Mr. D.
Yes.
Ms. French.
Yes.
Ms. Casper.
Yes.
Mr. Horton.
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer.
Yes. Thank you. I was like,